Good evening, everybody. Thank you again for our double header for tuning into Raghouse Radio, created to empower and promote girls and women in music, sports, entertainment, and business. If you missed it, East Valley Roller Derby from Yucaipa, they just left the studio. Awesome, amazing, tough chicks doing business, taking care of business, and also bringing their community together out there in Yucaipa. So check out their socials and please support. They're also going to have a bout on May 27th with the LA Renegade and Covina. So if you can go out there and support both teams, that would be awesome. For those of you live on our Raghouse Radio Facebook, hello, how are you? Nice to see you guys. And I just have to say, I'm so excited to introduce our next guest in studio who you have done so many things off the charts. It is just amazing. And her name, without further ado, is Staci Layne Wilson. Yeah. Thank you so much. Hello.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much for coming in. I just have to say, your book that you just had a signing on this Sunday that you sold out.
Yes, we did.
You sold out. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That is crazy. Brianna, I just have to tell you, Staci is just not only awesome because of all your accomplishments, but tough. You are one amazing, strong woman. We're going to hear some awesome stories tonight, Brianna. So
I'm excited.
I know. Meet Brianna, our sound engineer, also bass player. She,
bass player.
Yeah, she rules. She's her band Street Links. They play at the Whiskey.
Okay.
Not yet. Maybe one day.
Wait, where did you
You
guys?
should be.
Yeah.
We're just playing like little bars right now, trying to just get our name out there because we're new. So.
Oh, well, keep an ear out for you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
she's really fun. But in studio, Staci Layne Wilson, your PDF. Thank you so much for sending me your book.
You're welcome.
Oh my goodness, I was going through it, and I don't know how. Just all these things that you've experienced, positive learning experiences, and if I was you, I'd just be standing tall because every day, every second of the hour, because you have just seen and gone through so many awesome and crazy things that you should be really proud.
Well, yeah, at 5'2", I try to stand as tall as I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting life, I have to say, and full of ups and downs, but I think a life that's worth sharing with others, because part of the reason in writing the book was to help other people that might be going through some of the same things. Like when I was a child, my mother, went through a double radical mastectomy and, became an alcoholic as a result of that. And she was a single mom raising me. And so I think a lot of people will be able to relate to at least some of that story. And then just growing up, in Los Angeles, of course, in the wild times of the late 1970s and early 80s, which is when I came of age in the 80s. So it was definitely a different era. And it's funny, though, that people think of it now as nostalgic. It makes me feel a little OLD.
No. Even just that little bit that you just mentioned doesn't even scratch the surface of all your other experiences. And I just keep getting goosebumps because you grew up in, you're a native of California, as we all are. Brianna, right? You are too, right? You were born and raised. So, there's a lot of people who come through here, and I'm so happy. There are people who have moved, though, from other states.
Right.
And so you have seen that whole town, Tinseltown. You've seen LA. You've seen Sunset. Change, grow. All the different stages of everything while going through your own personal experiences. So before we get further into our conversation, I just want to throw out just a little bit of past for those of you just tuning in. Staci Layne Wilson, her book just came out.
Yes, it's been out for about 6 weeks now.
And you have a ton of books.
I do.
I could go into a ton of things. You just sold out in Burbank this Sunday.
Yes, at Dark Delicacies bookstore, which is one of the few sort of mom and pop bookstores left in Los Angeles. So
Awesome.
I like to support, the small business owners, and they've supported me for years. So that is definitely a mutual admiration society there, and just a really great community of readers and writers who come out to support one another. And it's a terrific feeling to have not only the books sell out, but just to be able to kind of mingle with people and meet people and just enjoy the stories and talking with folks. And it's a social thing.
It's a social thing. And that's really cool that you kind of tuned in on having your signing there because, it's a mom and pop.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
really neat. Yeah, small business. So Staci, what I thought was really cool was all your childhood pets that you mentioned right from the get-go in the beginning of your
Yes.
book. You also experienced a lot of different experiences, very colorful, held at knife point by home invaders, and your neighbor was murdered by the Hillside Strangler. You have personal stories about the Doors, Led Zeppelin, Guns N' Roses, Heath Ledger, just to name literally just like this much smidgen.
Right, and I didn't even put everyone in the book.
Oh my gosh.
It would be like the Encyclopedia Britannica if I did that. But I tried to select the most relevant stories that would match with, other stories and try to dovetail into subject matter. So it was hard to call out some.
I was just going to say it must have been hard because with all your experiences, I'm sure you remembered like, oh my goodness, but what I want to share this or,
right.
And then that opens up another door for maybe more memories, that you wanted to share. Her dad is also Don Wilson of the Ventures. And right away I knew that because I longboard. I learned how to longboard in 1990. And so that's part of the huge longboarding scene.
Absolutely. Yeah. The surf music of the 60s lives on to this day. I mean,
Till this day.
yeah. No, my dad just retired at the age of 83 from touring last year.
Wow.
And he started the band in 1959 and toured continuously every year of his life until just recently. So it's really just an amazing role model for me to have as far as perseverance goes and sticking with what you want to do in your dreams, because when the Ventures first started, really nobody wanted to play them.
Mm-hmm.
So, my grandmother, Josie Wilson, actually started her own record label to get them on the radio. So she's another great role model, too. I've had some wonderful women to look
Whoa.
up to.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if you Google her name, is there a lot of history behind?
Josie Wilson, and she won an honorary Grammy shortly before she passed away. She passed away in
my
the 90s,
condolences.
unfortunately. Yeah, she was a terrific woman. And so she's one of the pioneering sort of female record producers that is
Amazing.
kind of unsung. But if you look her up, she's definitely made a name for herself and the family.
That is so awesome. I had no idea about
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I'm going to know more now. That's really intriguing. Also, your dad is a Hall of Famer.
Right?
Yes.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he's played with artists such as Les Paul. That's very huge in the guitar. Can you believe that? Her dad's played with Les Paul.
That's very cool.
I know. Amazing.
That's one of the folks that I loved meeting was Les. He was so sweet and kind and down to earth. And, when I met him, it was a couple of years before he passed away, but his fingers were gnarled with arthritis, but he held my hands in his and he said it was really great to meet me. And, it's just really connected. And I got to see him play live that night that I had met him. So it was really a great, moment that I feel lucky that I have the family that I do, that I got to meet some of the great icons.
That is amazing. Lisa S. Johnson, I noticed she's a mutual
Yes.
friend. I love Lisa.
Isn't she the best?
Yes, 108 Rockstars guitars. I know she feels high. I mean, Les Paul is like one of her major, her story, when I interviewed her, her main story was about Les Paul.
Right, yeah, he
so.
wrote the foreword to her book, and he was just kind of a mentor to her and really encouraged her to keep on going with what she's doing, because she has the most unique macro photography of guitars from angles that fans never really get to see.
Ever.
It's a terrific book, yeah. And my
She-
dad's guitar is in there as well.
Nice. Okay, well,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah.
So that's the connection. That's how I met her.
Yeah, and she rules. I love her. I
Yeah.
actually shared a booth with her at NAMM.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple for the Women's International Music Network.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so it was a great experience. Also, Nancy Bacon, your mother, Playboy model, or you said pinup.
Yeah, a pinup model. She was in Playboy, but she wasn't a centerfold or anything like that. But she did more of like the nudie, cutie, topless things before Playboy really took off. She was in the little, lad mags, they called them, with,
Really?
Wink and Gentleman and Swank. But she did a lot of really cute layouts, and they're really fun to look back on.
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, her look is just amazing. And she's also an author.
She is.
Yes. And she also had many experiences hanging out with a lot of people. And
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had grew up in a small town in Washington State and ran away at the age of 14.
I
And
love her story.
I know, went to Las Vegas, met up with the Rat Pack, and they kind of took her under their wing. And then she went to Hollywood, and she met, the likes of Jane Mansfield and Marilyn Monroe, and she had affairs with Errol Flynn and Paul Newman and even Bobby Kennedy. And so her book, too, Legends in Lipstick, came out at the same time as mine. So it's kind of a mother-daughter memoir love fest that's going on right now.
That is so
Yeah.
cool. Has she had a signing also?
Not yet. In fact, she and I are doing a signing over
Oh.
Mother's Day weekend, but in Washington State.
Oh, I was going
Yeah,
to say
I
I have
know.
to go out there.
I
would've
know, wouldn't
taken
that
you-
have been great? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But she doesn't travel much these days. I think she got so much traveling out of her system as
Oh, I
a
can
youngster.
imagine.
Yeah, I mean, she went all over Europe and when it was cool, and met Orson Welles and King Farouk and Elizabeth Taylor when she was filming at Pinewood Studios in London. So she really got to see just the best of Europe at the optimum time of golden era Hollywood. And she has such an enviable life and a great book of memories as well.
Right. And just her story alone, right? How you wrote the story is just very intriguing, and you don't want to stop reading because it's her experience, but the way you way you put it down on paper, it was just, I just kept throwing things out loud, and my fiance was listening, and then I called my mom and dad because there were teenagers around. Or no, actually, I think they were a little older, but they knew, the ventures, and they. So it was awesome to share that with my mom and dad. Like I'm gonna have and she's accomplished so much because I know what I want to do is focus on you. There's all this history of your dad and your mom, and it's amazing, and it's sure stories to tell to go on forever. But you have also created your own stories and your own experiences, and it's just, to start off with the very beginning of your book when you talk about Black beauties. I was like, holy, when you're 4 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was thinking, because back then I remember I could have, or I did OD on Flintstone vitamins like a billion times. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they tasted so
little
good.
kids, they just find pills. But yeah, that was only the first time I almost died. So we have a few near-death experiences in my lifetime. But,
Staci, I just, the first thing I felt when I still have a little bit ways to go of your book, just probably 1/4, but your book, that just the feeling I get is how strong, because you have just like overcome all these experiences, and you're here now, and it's just, I myself, I'm just thinking, if I experienced anything just like a little smidgen of any of that, who knows if I would be here today. So I just want to let you know that as a woman, I look up to you, your 5'2" self. So
thank you.
very empowering. So let's talk about what stories. Actually, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to ask you if you could share from your book a story, or we could go any route you want to go, but maybe a story that you would like to talk about from your childhood, your teenage years, and then currently. I just want to show everybody out there in Facebook land, there's like what you see here.
How long are we gonna
Brianna,
be
check
here?
this out. These are lists of her movies that she's directed, produced, books that she's written. The list just goes on and on.
I can't wait to hear all about it.
I
It's
know.
So cool.
And I know, exactly. And it's just, I don't know how you sleep. You just have so much going on. So we would love to hear a story or, a good memory or a bad memory, whatever you want to share of your childhood that sticks out.
Well, one of the things that I remember being lucky enough to be able to experience in general was having horses in the backyard in the San Fernando Valley, because it was zoned for farm animals back then. And this was probably in the mid-1970s, and my mother's friend gave me a pony named Smokey Jet Jr., and he was just like, he was my four-legged brother, basically. He was my best friend and my confidant. And I remember just riding him all over the neighborhood and on golf courses where we got kicked out a couple of times, and riding up Ventura Boulevard and actually going through the drive-through one day.
An actual drive-through on your horse? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, what health code violation? I don't know.
You couldn't do that now,
no,
for sure,
not
but
at
back
all.
then, yeah.
So that was lucky. And then I also had a pet monkey who was an alcoholic that my mom got in a bar from a fellow wino, I guess you could say. And he gave him to her, and she brought him home, and she's like, here's your monkey. And he practically ripped my head off. He was not a very friendly monkey.
Oh my God. Bad monkey.
Yeah. And then, we had the usual rats and dogs and lots of cats. My mother's a big time cat person. In fact, she used to sort of volunteer for Ralph Helfler, who was one of the original animal trainers for Hollywood. So a lot of his big cats were in Disney films, and bears and things like that. And she would walk her cheetah down the street.
I was just going to say she had a pet cheetah.
She did, yeah. So I didn't experience that, but I got to see a lot of pictures of it, which is really cool. I do appreciate the fact that my mom got rid of the big cats before I was born.
Oh, God. Yeah, because you just
it
don't
might have
know.
been a snack, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're animals, so you
Right,
just have
exactly.
no idea.
And
where did she have them? In the backyard, just running loose? Or?
Well, it didn't really actually belong to her, but she would bring him home just part-time. I don't know if you're familiar with Tippi Hedren, but she had
Absolutely.
obviously.
I met her.
Did you? Yeah,
Yeah,
she had
from
big cats.
Birds.
Right, yeah, exactly. But she had big cats in her house, just kind of had the run of the house, and very interesting stories too. I mean, she has a great memoir as well. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that I feel lucky about having a childhood that was almost like growing up in the country, but with Tinseltown all around me, and just to have that great sort of feedback from my mother's friends, who were all very literary and intellectuals and people from all different kinds of walks of life. I mean, her best friends were, everyone from a tarot card reader to, to actors who were on the big screen. So just all different kind of people. That really informed me a lot.
And so they would come and visit your house?
Absolutely, yes. And they treated me just like I was one of them. I was never relegated to the child's table or anything like that. So I got to take part in some really interesting conversations and learn a lot.
That was really cool. I think that was a sign of the times too, because I remember there was no separation of, and now you see it sometimes where it's like little, but back then I just remember, we hung out in the bars and underneath the booths with my parents, so it was a great time. So out of your childhood, you probably throughout the years met so many famous people and had no idea who they were, of course, because, you were young.
They're just mom's friends or dad's friends for sure.
Exactly. So was there anyone as you got older that you met that you said, oh my God, I can't believe that I met them because they're just so iconic or
Well, when I was a teenager, growing up actually in San Bernardino County, I lived in Idlewild for a little while.
You did?
I did.
You were IEer for a little bit.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I felt like I was sort of banished to Siberia at the time, because we moved when I was 12 and I was just kind of, coming of age. And so
that's a hard age as it is.
Yeah, exactly. And being up in Idlewild is not a lot to do up there and so forth. Yeah.
maybe now there is. Yeah.
I had ponies and horses, and so that was a great part of it. But at any rate, I was a huge rock fan. I loved Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and the Rolling Stones and The Who and, all those groups. And so Led Zeppelin, though, was my jam.
Nice.
So when I got to meet Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, I mean,
See?
I
Can
almost
you
fainted.
believe that? I just almost
Right?
fainted right now. I knew it.
Yeah, and then later on in life, I was able to interview Jimmy Page when he did the It Might Get Loud documentary, which was a really fantastic moment of a professional career because I got to meet him like as, well, not equals, but
I'm
as,
sure it was
as a
equals, yeah.
reporter,
Uh-huh.
and so it wasn't just like a fangirl, tugging at his shirt tail. So it was a nice kind of, I guess, conclusion to the story of when I met him at the Rainbow, when I was 17 or something with my fake ID and, just met him briefly. And then I also met Robert Plant at that time. And I would go to all the shows, I went to, when Robert Plant was solo, I went to the shows with my stepmother, who was also a rock fan. So it was great that she took me to see those things. And then, of course, I got to see a lot of the really great bands on the Sunset Strip, as they were just breaking. I mean, I saw Prince at a roller rink, basically in 1981, I think it was.
What city?
It was in Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, So it was almost like the Studio 54 on wheels, but it was a short-lived venue. I can't remember what it was called. It's in the book. But yeah, and so, I mean, just to be able to see him at the time, when his 1979 hits were still breaking out, like I Want to Be Your Lover, and his first
The
hits,
album
to be able to
cover.
see that. Yeah.
Yeah, with the afro.
Right,
and
yeah,
black and gray, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I so remember
Before he found religion.
that. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, to be able to see those groups and to be able to see, I mean, hair metal was kind of the only port in the storm back then. I can't say I love hair metal, but but at least if you wanted to see, rocker guys with guitars and tight pants, that was the only thing you could see. But I saw like Poison, and I saw early incarnations of Guns N' Roses, and so I saw every live show that I possibly could go to. So it was great to be in close proximity to the Whiskey and the Troubadour and Gazzari's, which is no longer with us. But,
I never was able to go to that.
Yeah. So like Bill Gazzari was quite a character. So I have some stories about just sort of the local celebrities, Bill Gazzari and Hal Stone and Kim Fowley, who started the Runaways and was sort of their Svengali for a time. And then Angeline, the Billboard Queen, who anyone in Hollywood would know who she is. And she was the most famous woman in Hollywood for a time. And she was sort of one of the first people that was famous for nothing, like sort of the Paris Hilton of her time, I guess.
How
and, yeah, there were
weird.
billboards
That's so
of her all
cool.
over in her pink spandex, and her big hair. And so it was really kind of an interesting time that only existed for just a few years. So it was really interesting to look back on those days.
Oh gosh, yeah, because that's all changed.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's so different. And I think the first time I went out there, I'm 44 right now. I think I was maybe 18 or 19, and it probably is similar to now than it was. It's that era. It just was so amazing and just so unique. It's a it's a bummer that it's no longer like that. And
yeah, but maybe we wouldn't be looking back on it with such affection if it had
Exactly.
lasted. So
there you go. Yeah. So that's a way to look at it. So, God, there's just so many things rolling in my head right now. So I remember reading when you first moved out, all your pictures, you had really, really long. She had like, is it Crystal Gale?
Yeah.
Who had extremely long hair. I remember, she would sing and do this
Yeah.
thing with her hair.
Yeah.
Your hair was red and flowy and beautiful.
Yeah,
and
I
you
didn't
modeled
have
it.
the big 80s hair.
You didn't,
No,
but your
I
friends
didn't.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember a lot of Aquanet inhalation back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, a lot of people probably lost some brain cells from that, I'm
I think
sure.
so.
Yeah, so at this age, you're going out, you're seeing a lot of rock shows, you're going to all the venues, and that was on your own. You were the one that was interested in that, you and your friends.
Absolutely, yeah. Because my dad was on the road a lot, so I didn't grow up with him. I mean, I would see him, once in a while, but he wasn't a factor in my sort of personal growth as I was getting to my teenage years. But my mother was, but my mom wasn't a rock fan. But my stepmom Jan, who was a great influence on me, just a real nurturer, but also a rock fan. And like I said, she took me to see the Robert Plant concert, and we managed to get up to the third row at the then LA Forum.
Wow, that's huge.
I know.
How did you guys
exciting.
do that?
Well, we
chairs?
noticed that a few people didn't show up. And my friend Peg, who was my bad influence friend, which every teenager needs to have. She had gotten like a front row seat somehow because she was a bit of a groupie, so she knew how to work those angles. And we saw her down there, and she's like waving us down, and I don't know how we did it, but security wasn't as tight back then as it is now. So yeah, we were able to see the whole show from the third row, and we had gotten like loge seats or something. So it was really great. And Jan was just like the best friend a girl could have at my age because I wasn't driving yet, I think, and so she really was a great friend and a stepmom to have.
That is really cool. She had a car, and so she could drive you.
Absolutely.
And she loved the music, so you guys were able to share those awesome experiences.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So at what age, and I kind of have an idea, but at what age and who, if anybody, started to influence you to write? And just to start jotting down your memories, because I know you saved a lot of pictures, you've made a lot of notes. What really triggered that to start happening?
Yeah, well, I would have to say that it was my mother, because she was a working writer and author throughout my entire childhood, and she was actually one of the first female editors of Confidential magazine in the early 1970s. Yes.
Awesome.
And she edited a lot of magazines like that were sort of, tabloidy stuff, because she was a gossip columnist when she was younger. And she also wrote novels, and she did even ghostwriting. So she was always typing on her IBM Selectric.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so it's just something that I guess I had a natural affinity for, but she also encouraged me. Unlike, some parents who, especially as I got older, she didn't mind that I dropped out of high school. She said,
I read that, yeah.
Yeah, and because she had as well, of course, she ran away. I didn't run away, but I did leave home at 17. But she always encouraged me to pursue my writing and my creative things that I like to do. And she knew that I was educating myself, and she was educating me as well. And I feel like I never really needed that high school diploma. So yeah, she was definitely a big influence on my writing, but I've always loved reading. And so memoirs are something that I've always enjoyed. And I started keeping a diary when I was about 11 years old.
So you were young.
Yeah. So it was really kind of, because I never really went back and read them until now when I started researching for my book. And it sounds kind of strange that you might have to research your own life, but
that's because you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Or I can't believe she did that. She's my friend, or whatever.
Right, So there was a lot of that. But then also the book is almost a travelogue of Los Angeles during the time. So that was also some research that I had to do to see what was going on in the early 1970s, because as a young child, I wouldn't have been aware of some of the socio-political things happening. And but I did, weave it into my own experiences at the time.
That is so crazy. I mean, just the fact that your mom, because she was known for her looks, but it was brains and beauty.
Yes.
It was, a combination. And so that to me is just really awesome, especially back in the 60s and 70s, because I know normally it was, the housewife, you graduated from high school and then you got married and had children, and that was fine. That's fine. So for her to venture out of those two things, that's a huge thing. And then it had an influence on you. And you dropping out of high school, but moving forward and creating all these things. And so that's what I want to touch on. It is just, I don't know how you sleep. I don't know how you complete things, because your list just runs on and on and on. You are not only a writer, you are also a director. You are a producer. You are a cinematographer. I'm probably missing a lot of a blogger.
I do a few things now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just like, and you know what my mom always says, when you want something done, you ask a busy person.
Right.
And that's what I thought of when I was I was thinking, I bet you people have these ideas and then they reach out to you and then they know they're gonna be completed or something's gonna grow out of it. I also noticed Brooke Lewis,
Yes.
who was in here
Mhm.
not that long ago. You guys are tied in.
We are. In fact,
Yeah.
our current film right now, Psychotherapy, is a short film that is sort of a two-hander with a psychiatrist and the patient. And Brooke wanted me to write something for her that would kind of show off her dramatic acting talents because she's so cute and fun. She gets cast a lot in
Sure.
comedies and sci-fi and horror and stuff. So I know, what she can do, and she knows what I can do. And we've collaborated before. I directed some of her other things for her Be You and Be Fearless life coaching YouTube series. And
She is
things.
so amazing as a human being.
She is amazing. Yeah,
Inside
she's
and
a
out,
dynamo. Yeah, and a heart of gold. So it's Psychotherapy is hitting the film festival circuit now, and we've won
Congratulations.
several awards. So I'm really excited
Yes.
about that, and that has a lot to do with Brooke's perseverance, and she knows all the people at the festivals, and she's really a go-getter in that regard. So I think that I'm excited, and hopefully we can do something bigger together, like a feature film. But for now, we've got this short, and it's really pretty hard-hitting and dramatic, and it's also fun. So
And that's cool. And when she's standing near us, she makes us feel tall.
right.
I was like, oh my goodness, because she's so sweet and just, because when you have people come through into the studio, you've done research, but as a human being, you always wonder, I wonder how they're going to be. And 99% of the times, the people who walk through this store, Brianna, are just amazing and awesome. And
Yeah, everyone's super nice. They all have like their own stories. It's really cool to get to know a lot of these people.
yeah, it's just so different and unique. And when she came in, I knew she was going to be an awesome person, but she just blew me out of my chair because she's just this life coach and she's just this huge power in this little fleshy body. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
oh
know.
my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I saw the connection there and I'm like, oh my goodness, how awesome is that for you two amazing, strong, hard-working women to work together?
Yeah, and we work really well together. There's never any conflict or anything like that. And I have found that luckily the creative people that have been drawn to me and vice versa in my whole life, really, it's been really good connections, and I never had any issues. I know a lot of people find the creative process painful at times, but I never have, so I feel lucky about that.
Well, probably because you're good vibes. So good vibes, you attract more good vibes.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. Yeah. And sometimes you get these little randoms over here, but you
Right.
just, don't pay attention.
Yeah.
So how in the world with your book, I know this is kind of off subject a little bit, but how were you able to, out of all your experiences and all your meetings, how were you able and how long did it take you to pick the exact ones that you wanted for your book?
Yeah, that's a good question because it is difficult. You want to, I guess it's like a sculpture, you kind of chip away until you have the form that you want. So of course I put in a lot more initially and then pared it down till it was more, it's not fully linear. I mean, at times, because I know, like I said, I read a lot of memoirs. So when I read a memoir, I don't really want to hear about the person's life or family history, in the very beginning, where that goes on for 3/4 of the book until the person is actually born.
That's
you know what I
true.
mean?
Yeah,
so I
that's
tried
true.
to kind of segue back and forth a little bit without being jarring. But another great thing was that I have some really intelligent friends who helped me as my beta readers. So I had 4 people read it after I had my first rough draft, and different kinds of people too. I had a couple of people from Europe who had never been to LA, so I wanted to know, do you understand
good
everything
idea.
that I'm saying? And then I had a couple of people, I had a man who, who read it. So it's, from a male perspective, what did you think of this? And so that was really helpful to me, actually.
Interesting. I would have never have thought of that, but that's good because you got all these different views and these ideas, especially European people, because they're, just it's a different culture.
Right.
And then if they haven't visited Los Angeles. So what, so did those their comments and their experience while reading your book, did it help you quite a bit? Did it change things dramatically?
No, amazingly, they didn't have too many notes for me, which was good because
good.
I thought I would have more than I did, but they were extremely helpful, and just the smallest tweaks can really change the entire feel of a book. So so that helped. And then some of the things that, like I said, I'd read a lot of memoirs, so I kind of knew what not to do as far as what I'd want to read, but of course everything is subjective. So I pretty much wrote a book that I would like to read, and hopefully the rest will follow, and so far it has.
And you know what's crazy, and Staci, I hate to say this, but I am not a reader. I do not. I ever, even when I was in college, I hated reading.
Oh,
in
really?
high school, academics to me was never. It was always my outfit or what boy I wanted to have a crush on. So it was. But your book, and I'm not just blowing smoke, and because you're my guest, but right from the very beginning, I was like very interested. And like how I said, I just kept reading through, throwing out. My fiance's a musician, and so it was just really cool to share that, because I think he was even in shock, like, wow, she's still reading, this is like, and I'm like, okay, I'm still interested. And so
good.
all your experiences are just amazing. So this is one of my questions I want to ask you. But and for those of you tuning in, we're also live on YouTube for Chaotic Radio. So you have a lot of live people looking in, and as an interviewer, because I noticed you also interview people. So I kind of got nervous, because I was thinking, normally when people come in, they don't, because I'm the one that interviews.
Right.
And so how did you start interviewing, and who did you learn off of, if anyone? And
well,
any tips?
Yeah, right. You're doing great.
Oh, good.
I have no
Thanks.
notes for you.
Thank you. Well, not yet. Let's
Right.
see.
Well, let's see how much time we got left. No, actually, I had started out writing horror novels and paranormal romance, vampire romance novels and things like that were popular in the early 2000s. And I had sent one of my books to the webmaster of horror.com and also the editor of Cinefantastique magazine, and they both looked at my book and asked me, would you like to write movie reviews? And I thought, well, where did you get that from? But apparently they, needed a writer who understood horror. And back then, I'd say back then, but it was only like 16 years ago, I guess.
That's still back then.
Wasn't, as far
16 years ago, I was a whole different
right? I mean, there
person.
wasn't really the same fanboy culture that there is now, where everyone is chiming in on their favorite movies and stuff. So film criticism was still a profession that you
Those two
had
gentlemen.
to.
They
Right.
had their TV show. What
yeah, Siskel and Ebert,
Siskel
right?
and Ebert, yeah.
And
I remember
Pauline
seeing that.
Kael is an excellent female film critic, and she's
Awesome.
passed away since then. But I used to read her reviews, so. And I always loved movies, so it seemed like a natural fit, and it turns out that it was. So I started off reviewing films, and then from that point, publicists at the studios would say, hey, you want to cover the red carpet or the junket? And I didn't even know what a junket was. I'm like, well, I guess so.
What is it? I heard of the term junket.
Yeah.
What, can you explain
Yeah,
to
a
me?
press junket is when, say, a movie like, let's say The Rings right now is the horror film, the ghost movie that's out. So the talent and the director would go to a place, probably a hotel or maybe an event venue, and then the press would come from pretty much all over the world, and to interview them. So it's kind of like a round robin interview thing over the course of 2 days.
Got it.
And yeah, I mean, it's pretty regimented, so it's pretty easy to stay in your lane, I guess, and learn how to do it. But yeah, I just actually had no formal training, but I took to it, and that's probably, my most fulfilling and longest lasting career is as an entertainment reporter. So because I can review movies, I can interview people. I've flown to set visits and things like that. So it's a great kind of profession that you never really get tired of, because you're always covering a different movie.
I was just going to say, it's so unique. Everything is so different on
Yeah, I
each.
like change. So it's change within the same job, which is great.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And so without so did you get any professional training? Like you said, you learned on your own. You just jumped right in. Did you get any professional training to be a director, producer, a writer? Did you go to classes?
No, I never did. No, but I did learn a lot from visiting sets and watching other directors work and seeing some of the greatest directors that we know at work, and then some of the directors that you've never heard of doing low budget films, and just watching how it's done. And also, I think just the ability to be able to tell a story is the number one qualification that you need in order to either be a screenwriter or a film director.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I've had that all my life, and it's just something that I take to. And
That's your journey.
Yeah.
That's what you.
yeah, so I would say like I don't really have one profession, but anything that, if there's any universal tie, it's storytelling.
Right. Well, you're a creative. That's a creator. So I laughed so hard because I was reading when you were in Tahoe for a little bit,
Yeah.
and how you said, and I think I read it correctly, but you said something about that your mom, you guys were hanging out with the writer of The Exorcist.
Right, yeah, William Peter Blatty.
They were hanging out with the writer of The Exorcist in
Yeah.
Tahoe. I'm like, oh my God, who does she not know in this universe? Jeez.
Right, yeah, and my mother would give him writing critiques, and she said, "Oh, he's not a very good writer." I'm
That's
like,
what
wow,
I
that's
read.
kind of harsh.
No, my favorite was when your mom said, she's handsome, but he's a little dull.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you say that.
I know.
That's very strong for a woman to say back then. Or
Oh,
even
absolutely.
Think that,
Yeah. No,
you
my
know?
mom has always been pretty outspoken, but never abrasive, because I think she's so charming that whatever she says is sugar coated.
Wow, what a
Maybe it
great
goes right
gift.
over a lot of heads, but yeah, she's quite a character.
That's awesome. Well, so are you. I can see you're just so, you're just so laid back. And have you always been this way? Your demeanor, just
Yeah.
very chill. And
Yeah.
that's really neat. Because I know me, I probably would have just been jumping off the, the walls of all your
Well,
experiences.
that's, I think, what makes people interesting is that we're all different.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I love that.
Yeah. So, okay. I just want to throw out, you've been a director of Fetish Factory, Good Family Time, Psychotherapy.
Yes.
With our girl, Brooke Lewis.
Uh-huh.
Not With My Daughter. Erin Kai, I Paint the Movies, a documentary short. Keepsake, Self Portraits, Miss Vampy's Love Bites,
Yes. Brooke.
another Brooke Lewis. Who Pays on the First Date? I mean, Sex on the First Date, Online Dating, Miss Vampy Bites, TV series. She has 5 episodes. Having the Right Success, Making Changes. All this, and a lot of it say 2013, right? So that was like your year of...
Yeah, I must have been bored that year. I don't know.
She must have been bored.
Not
so she
looking
wanted
for
to
stuff to
it.
do. I'm most excited about Fetish Factory, which it's a feature film that I wrote and directed for Blanc Bean Productions, and Jennifer Blanc is the producer, and she is one of those women that gives other women a chance, because I had never directed a feature film before, but she watched some of my shorts and gave me a shot, which is not common, I have to say. Yeah, so I really appreciate that. And the women in the horror sort of circle in Los Angeles are very
they do.
supportive
Of
one another. Yeah,
Oh, they are.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good to hear.
So anyway, that film is a zombie comedy, and it's kind of an homage, I guess, to the vintage vixens of yore, which of course my mother was. So some of the characters, one of the characters is played by Carrie Keegan, who is another terrific empowered female, and she's
Awesome.
she just got a job on KLOS radio, so I'm so excited for her.
Nice.
Yeah, I met her through being an entertainment reporter with her, but then she went into acting, and she plays sort of the Betty Page character of the film, and these burlesque dancers run afoul of bloodthirsty zombies in the course of one
Nice.
post-apocalyptic night in Hollywood, and it's obviously a very serious drama.
Oh my God. That's
yeah.
fun.
So that
Those
just
have to
got
be
picked
fun.
up for distribution. So within the next few
Congratulations.
months, yes, people will be able to see it streaming, and hopefully- yeah, I'm
Nice.
excited about that. So
Congratulations on that,
Yeah.
because I'm sure there's a lot of literally blood, sweat, and tears that go into all these
there
projects.
certainly is.
And
Yeah.
How long does it take to? I mean, because I noticed there were so many in 2013. I guess each thing is unique in as far as a time frame. But what's the shortest and what's the longest of documentaries or movies that you've directed? Or
Geez, the feature films, I've done 2 of them for Blanc Bean Productions, and this is going to sound short to anyone who's familiar with filmmaking, but we do our features in 5 days. So 5 12-hour days of
5 12-hour days.
Yeah. So
you
can
bring
make
a sleeping bag?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, you're definitely on the move for nonstop. Because as the director, of course, I start before anyone and finish after everyone, because you're just kind of setting up the next day at the end of the last day. So yeah, those were 5-day shoots, and that's actually the longest I've ever taken to make anything. My short films are all shot within 1 day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's really, I mean, it's dead on. You have to be on your game.
Yeah,
and the
I like
actors.
to work that way, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your attention, I wonder, because I know my attention span just goes out the window. It's very small attention span. So is that kind of how it works with you?
I don't know. I just like to start something and be able to finish it within a view of the beginning. So
yeah. And and this says it all with all yours. And then as a writer, you've just written Elevator Man, Good Family Times, 3 a.m. in Hollywood, Psychotherapy, Bionic Kitchen, Cheap Rodeo, First Night in Heaven.
Yeah, that's a music video.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
Cheap Rodeo. Okay, First Night in Heaven. And The Night Plays Tricks, The Key to Annabelle Lee. I mean, these are just all, it just goes on and on. And as a cinematographer, again, no experience or no professional training or
no. I mean, I couldn't probably shoot a feature-length film on my own, but for my own short films, I, of course, love the advent of digital photography because it makes it so much easier. I just feel like I have a certain eye for how I want to see things, particularly in my more expressionistic short films, which are more like art films. So in that case, I like to be able to shoot them myself. However, part of the reason that I do wear so many hats is because I like to be self-sufficient and I don't like to bother people. And if I don't have much of a budget that I can't pay people, then I don't want to call in too many favors. So I try to do everything myself that I can.
Here. Yeah. That's awesome.
But I have worked with some great cinematographers. In fact, one of my favorite DPs is Stephanie Paris, who and female cinematographers are even rarer than female directors. But we're starting to emerge a bit, and she's terrific, and I loved working with her. She shot actually one of the Ventures music videos that I did in honor of their 50th anniversary, called Beethoven 5-0.
Nice.
And she shot that, and it was just such a pleasure to work with her. And we worked together again on a feature film called The Lincoln, which she directed and I co-wrote with her.
Amazing. Staci, you have so much going on. You have
Yeah,
probably lived like 10 lifetimes, of just all your accomplishments. I know we have just a few more minutes. This hour flew by fast, and I didn't even touch like half the question, not even half the questions. There's a couple of people I would love to introduce to you. Women's International Music Network. They're huge. I think they would love to. I'll reach out to Laura B. Whitmore, the founder. She's an awesome lady, and I think your stories and your experiences in music would benefit from, of course, definitely benefit. And then also there's Real Camp Stories, REEL, Real Camp Stories. They're going to have a summer camp in July for young girls to learn how to. It's 1 week long in, is it Glendale or Glendora? I think it's Glendale College. I'm just throwing this out there because.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love meeting other creative women, and also I feel like empowering girls and sort of, telling them sort of my story and how they can achieve things as well, I think is a great
It's a
benefit.
fun tool. Yeah. And I know the founder, they're from Oakland, so this is going to be their first camp out here in July.
okay.
And we know you're busy, but I just wanted to throw that out just so it's in your radar and just something to think about, because empowering women is why we're here and supporting.
Yeah,
so
that's why I wanted to be here.
yeah, it's really fun. I just want to just read this really quick. On moving from film journalist to filmmaker, I think having a lot of knowledge from the aspect of an observer and reporter actually enhances my experience as a creator. This little paragraph, well, this big paragraph right here, it definitely states exactly, just how you're evolving, how you evolved from all your experiences and all your accomplishments and everything you've been doing. Brianna, did you have any questions or anything? Because I know our time, I can't believe this hour. We only have like 4 more minutes.
I can always ask her after.
Oh, you want
I'll think of some.
There's nothing on air that you want to...
Nothing I can think of.
Yeah, there's...
It's just a lot to take in, really.
Yeah, it's just so much. People can buy your book.
Yes, it's available exclusively on Amazon right now, and then because it's paperback and Kindle.
Oh, okay.
So for 90 days, I'm keeping it on Kindle Unlimited, and then we'll be branching out to iTunes and Barnes and Noble and whatnot. But if anyone wants signed copies of my book or my mother's book, they're available through my website.
Oh,
So,
great.
Yeah.
Well, will you and your mother, or is there any talk of possibly having a double signing out in Los Angeles area? Or
My mom doesn't like to travel anymore, so
Oh,
I don't
she
know.
doesn't reside
Yeah.
out here?
No, she lives
Okay.
in Washington State,
Okay.
and that's actually where she's from. So it's interesting that she would go back to the place she ran away from. But
Oh, that is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's an
yeah,
interesting story.
sometimes you just can't
is
escape your
home.
roots, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, mine are here in LA, and I've never lived anywhere else, and I can't envision moving. Although I've traveled all over the world and seen
Oh,
a
I
lot,
bet.
but I can't. There's never been a place that I felt like home except here.
And that's, I'm from the Inland Empire here, and I have also moved, I'm sure not to the exotic fun areas that you have experienced, but I've had my move, and now I'm back here in the Inland Empire, so I totally understand that and everything. Those of you tuning in, this has just been an amazing evening with Staci, Layne Wilson. Is there a book? I know you just finished your book, but is there another book
Another
in
book.
the horizon or anything?
Yeah, I have a few ideas, but I don't know which one I'm going to write yet. So
Or-
folks can keep up with me and help me figure it out as I go.
Right. All
Yeah.
right. So we're down to just a couple minutes. So I like to give the guests the mic so they could do any shout outs or any kind of just anything. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Raghouse Radio, empowering girls and women in music, sports, entertainment, and business. I'm going to give the mic to Staci Layne Wilson, and she's going to give out her shout outs and anything else you'd like to do.
Okay, well, I'd like to shout out to the Ventures, first of all, because even though my dad is no longer a part of the live touring group, they will be here in Malibu and Newport Beach.
saw
And
that.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
so they're going to be here. So I think it's, you can find it through their website, theventures.com, to come see them. And then for my mother's book, Legends in Lipstick, which is also in paperback and Kindle on Amazon, it's a very, very interesting read for anyone who's interested in old Hollywood, especially because it's so trendy right now. I think with, the show Feud that was just on about Joan Crawford and
Right.
Betty Davis. So she's got some stories that have never been told before. So it's kind of like discovering something new in the 50s and 60s that you may not have known about. So those are my shout outs.
Awesome. And your book, So LA.
Shout out to myself.
Yeah.
I can do that. So LA, a Hollywood memoir, and that is available at my website, stacilaynewilson.com, which is StaciLayneWilson.com, or Amazon, good old Amazon.
Good old
Yeah,
Amazon.
and electronic if you like swiping on Kindle, or paperback if you enjoy turning pages. And there's plenty of pictures too in the book. So
Awesome pictures. All right. So Staci Layne Wilson, thank you so much
thank
for
you.
coming into the studio. Thank you, Brianna, sound engineer, bass player. Both of you are
Brianna.
still. Please check out her socials. Her book is just, and this comes from a non-reader. Her book is extremely interesting. So many stories to tell, especially if you're interested in the whole Hollywood scene back in the day of the 80s. And she lived it. She knows about it. So we have to have you back when Chrissy's here, our other host. And
Oh, okay.
maybe Brooke Lewis can come in too. And we
wouldn't
could
that
all
be
talk.
fun?
It would be lots of fun.
How long would that show be?
We'll probably have to make it 5 hours. Thank you so much for tuning in to Raghouse Radio. Next Wednesday live, our host, Chrissy, will be interviewing the Go-Go's, a tribute to the Go-Go's. And so check that at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm April Duran, your host for Raghouse Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Staci Layne
thank
Wilson.
you.
Amazing. Everybody have a good evening.